Welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. We're glad you guys are with us again. We are really glad that you guys have been ranking, or you have ranked.
We left reviews,
left
which
enough
led to
reviews
a ranking.
that led us to a ranking of, what'd you say, 31?
31 in
Out of
all of
the
wilderness.
That's really good.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty good.
Can't thank you guys enough. Continue your podcast reviews. We appreciate that.
You want to know what's usually number one?
What's that?
Sasquatch files.
I thought you said it was something that had nothing to do with hunting. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
So we got some shout-outs. Sid Thompson, 99, thank you. Weston and Beth, thank you. New Age Conservative, thank you. We're going to cover part of your topic. Slimy Moose Juice, thank you.
Slimy Moose.
And Oregon Hunter 69, you the man. Appreciate all you guys, and all you Spotify people, we appreciate you too, and you YouTube people. Next time we'll say YouTube people first, so you guys don't feel like you're getting left out all the time. You want to introduce our topic?
Sure. And so today's topic comes from one of our, what was his name? Taylor
Kopic.
Taylor Kopic. Taylor wrote in, and he's got a good question. Hopefully, a whole bunch of you are having this question, and that is, how do you keep a new hunter interested, and how do you get them hooked on hunting? So we're going to talk about some of that, some of the different ways that you can go about doing that, which he's already doing some of them. So prior to hunting, getting someone started with trail cameras and running around doing fun stuff like that, making it fun, that would be one of the things. But anyhow, we'll all answer that, but then we're going to bring you guys up to speed on where we are. We are
some tips going into November.
Days away from the rut really kicking off. I'd still say I would still classify this as pre-rut.
Yep.
I don't think we have any breeding going on yet.
I classify it as I have no idea what's going on. What's going on in here? Yeah,
All right, so who wants to tackle the first question about Taylor's question about getting new hunters interested?
I think we'll kind of all have the same answer to this. But
is this the whole topic?
I think yours was Easton made a comment kind of off the air before we started of I wouldn't have gone that way. So I think that we might have some different stuff.
Okay, well, why don't you just start with what you were going to say?
We know they're interested, obviously, right? Like we're going in just how to keeping them interested is what he said.
Yeah, I think you could basically just say that there's some level of interest, but it could be low.
Yeah. I would start with hunting fields. The reason I say hunting fields is because you can see a long ways. Now there's places sometimes where if you have a good spot that's in the trees, you're going to see a lot of deer. But the reason I say hunt fields with them is because, one, it's probably some kind of easy access. Two, they can see a long ways. And three, since they can see a long ways, hopefully there's going to be a lot of deer. So no matter what, whether in their head they're seeing them right under them or not, or they're all shootable or not, they're at least being entertained. Right. Like, hey, there's deer here and there. You go to your spots where, like, I hunt primarily like timber and stuff that's thicker. I don't expect to see 20, 30 deer or 10 or 15. I expect to see a few, and hopefully a few is the right one. So don't put them in that kind of situation where they're going to go 3 days with seeing 2 deer or something, and they're like, well, what the heck? This is boring.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's a great tip. But there's several others that go along. I'm thinking of Mom and how when we first started hunting and some of the things that I've heard her explain that she didn't like. And are you done, or you want me to go on, or
that was my main one is keep them entertained with places that there's a lot of deer.
Right, and it's because I think a big one is make sure they're comfortable. Mm-hmm. Meaning, like I was cheap. They didn't make women's clothing back when Mom started hunting with me, and so I gave her my stuff. So she's got a belt pulled like 12 notches tight, trying to hold up a pair of pants that are sagging in the crotch, and it wasn't comfortable. I didn't know anything about her shooting a bow at the time. And so first time that her bow hits her boobs, she's not comfortable with it, It's stuff that...
But wasn't it your bow?
It was mine. That's what I'm saying.
How was she even drawing that?
We were able to crank it down that low. And so she...
But it was probably still a 10-pound increment, right?
I don't even remember.
Back then.
I don't remember what bow that was.
Well, you're talking a 28... 3 inches long past her draw length, and then even if it was 55, that had to have been hard.
Right. Okay, well, anyways.
So anyhow, my point is you don't need to do that anymore. And now, if I could go back to where I was then, and take the knowledge I have and bring it to here, I would say make sure that they have clothes that fit, warm clothes, that they have a bow or a gun that fits them, and make sure everything is comfortable. And one of the things that goes with comfort is try not to take them like you were not taking them into that dingy, dark spot where you're only going to see one or two deer, but you're hoping to see the right one. I'm going to say one of the greatest things that you can do is put them in a ground blind.
Yeah.
You can put them in a ground blind somewhere because weather's off of them. It stays a little bit warmer. You can move around in there a little bit. It's great for kids. It's great for new hunters. So that would be my number one, would be look at doing something like that when you're going to get someone involved.
Yeah.
Is because you can get away with a little more.
Yep. I would agree. I think that one, you want to keep them entertained. I mean, I have a hard enough time with that myself. So a new hunter, you definitely want to keep them entertained and let them make sure that they're getting to see critters. I think from there, I agree. Don't go and do your intense hunting with a brand new hunter, where you're going to go and drag them through all kinds of shit and then hang a brand new stand and and you expect them to keep up with you or anything like that. The one other thing that I would say from personal experiences is set expectations. And what I mean by that, so Taylor, this one's for you. If I was you, I'd be very, very careful about letting her set her heart on this 8-point. Just because, one, you got to put yourself back in their shoes, and they don't really have a realistic expectation of what it may take to kill that deer. And then from there, you may have an issue with every single year. They are expecting to go and try and find this one deer, and they don't understand that it may take 30 days to have that deer come by you.
I think what you're talking about is understanding the difference between catching them on trail camera and catching them within X amount of yards.
Try and get them excited about shooting a spike to start with, and I made this mistake, and I didn't realize it
He
until...
still makes this mistake to this day and wonders why.
No, it's way better now, but I didn't.
It's not.
I made this same exact mistake with my fiance, which is I was looking at deer here in Iowa. It's a lot different, obviously. We drive down the road during the summer looking at deer, and a 140-inch deer, she'd be like, look at that one, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, because here we're not stopping for a deer of that size because we're spoiled. If I'm going to stop, he's got to be 150-plus inch deer for sure, probably more like 160 in the summer. And so then she's looking at 160-plus inch deer all the time, and we get into bow season, and a beautiful little 100-inch 8, a 90-inch 8 comes by, and I was like, that's a shooter, and telling her to get ready and everything. She's like, are you sure it's big enough? And I'm like, yeah, it's big enough.
What's funny is he didn't even hear himself say it. You just said little. A little 80 or 90
Yeah.
inch.
I said, well, I mean,
but he says the same thing when we're checking cameras.
But that's what we
But your expectations shouldn't be for big yet.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't think you need to say that, no, that deer wasn't little. That doesn't make it not a nice deer.
Right.
When I say that it was a really pretty buck, he's still not necessarily big, but for your first deer, and it is a lot different than what you see in the summer or what you see on your trail cameras. Actually getting one to walk within shooting distance is a whole different ball game. And so I made that mistake I should have been amping her up on every little buck that we saw during the summer. I should have been stopping and getting a spot and scope on them, because then I think it would have changed expectations and not been such a unrealistic expectation, especially then when she sees me go and pass lots of deer like that, where we're completely different levels as far as time and in a seat. So
you say it's Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor, take his advice. Don't go live with him, because you'll see that he doesn't take his own advice. But it is good advice, okay? And the reason I say this is because I live with Warren. So me, Warren, and his fiancée live together, and so I get to hear these things, unfortunately. I come home with my 17 different trail cameras or whatever I'm freaking running everywhere that is absurd, and I come home to check my trail cameras, and I have a buck. This is just a common thing, but it just happened last night. A buck that I've known for 3 years that he grew this year, but he's probably upper 30s to 40s. Like, I'm considering if he comes by, I've known him for a long time, and he's
a history.
I would like to. I mean, I'd need to see him in person, but I saw him one time in person. I was like, oh boy, he's a lot bigger than I thought. So I might shoot him. Warren, he can't hide anything. So when she's sitting there and she's walking around doing her thing, or she comes and walks by and sees the deer on the camera or whatever too, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really freaking good deer. I'd possibly shoot that deer. And Warren walks up like, oh really? And looks up, man, it's a good deer. Walks away. So it's not like he can hide it. So she's still looking at a 140 some inch deer and be like, oh, that's a good deer. Okay, so clearly in her head she's gonna relate to, oh, it's not that impressive, so I better not shoot it. So now when she goes and sees another deer that could have the same frame or anything, she's still thinking, I'm gonna pass it.
What am I supposed to call it? A monster?
You could at least fake it a little more. Because I fake it for her. Because I know.
You get mad at me for saying 150 some inch deer is a good deer.
Because that's stupid. That's a freaking big deer.
It's the same.
It's a good deer,
It's
though.
the same thing. When you guys were little, I used to get you so excited about going to the bank to get a sucker. I mean, it was like the coolest thing, and both of you lived up to it. Like, we're going to the bank today. And then if you remember, your first deer wasn't very big. Your second deer wasn't very big. But we had practiced, like, look at this deer. Look at this. Oh, look, there's a buck. That would be a perfect one for you to shoot. And just kept going and then that way you were not disappointed at all when you shot your first deer, and I don't think you were either.
I wasn't at all. I saw just some kind of antler, so I knew I was a shooter.
That first deer that I shot in my eyes was like 170. Yeah. I mean, it was a mule deer, but because I was about to shoot the forking horn, and I can't remember why we couldn't get a shot of him. Right. And then this 4x4 came over, and I lost my mind. I was like, this thing is humongous.
Yep.
Point of the story, Taylor. Just listen to experience. He has a ruined fiance at home, and he continues to ruin her. And I don't blame her too much for it, even though I argue with her on it. But anyways.
But so one of the things that are going to kind of lead us into the other place that we were going is talking about the time of year that we're getting ready to enter, which is the rut. That can be a great time to take someone to see deer. Yeah. It can be a hard time to go get a shot at a deer.
Yep.
Because in another week, catching them where they're not moving is tough. They're going.
Controlled variables is a little bit, quite a bit less.
So. But anyhow, I don't know if we want.
So let's.
What else was there though anything else that we're missing there?
I think on that one, I think we covered most of it. I think keeping them comfortable is important, and I think that you should keep in mind, unless they really, really, really want to go or something, and you have one of these days where it's, 5 degrees and blistering winds and everything else, don't take them. Right. Let it, or if you're going to take them and you're convinced you're going to do that, you need to be ready to be getting out an hour before dark.
I was going to say keep the hunts to a shorter duration too.
Yeah.
A couple hours, where normally you typically sit 4 hours. Maybe make that 2 hours.
Yeah. Like if to you it's like it's a sin to get out early or something, you got to put that mindset aside because they don't understand. They don't really understand what you're doing at that point. So like if you have a spot where you really don't want to go and screw anything up, you probably should try to go to a different spot. Yeah.
Not necessarily go to that spot.
Yep. So, all right. I think let's go into tips for October 30th, which is today. So this will probably go out tomorrow. So October 31st through till next Tuesday, the first week here, let's do 2 strategies. One, what are your top 2 or 3 tips on chasing a specific buck for the next several days? And what are your 2 or 3 tips for trying to kill any deer, any decent deer to you?
I wrote some down before this about just any deer. I didn't do like a specific one. I could come up with some, but I could do some of the general. I caught myself the other day with Joey.
So is this a specific deer or not?
No, I just said I don't have. Okay. I'll have to think about some of those when you guys are talking about some of them. So this is just generally hunting in this time of year. I caught myself. Me and Joey's to the point now where he's learned a lot and he's implementing a lot. So there's times where he still asks questions and things like that because we're both always learning. But it's not nearly as much as like your first year where he's just soaking every bit of everything up. So now he's getting to a much more advanced level. So we're kind of learning from each other. Or like when he goes and sits somewhere else, he can tell me, hey, that these deer did this kind of thing and that kind of thing. And we learn some stuff. But one of the questions he asked me the other night when we got out, I think we saw like, I don't know, a couple deer. He goes, man, that was kind of a lot slower than I thought. Do you think we bumped them or something, or do you think that they just weren't moving tonight? And without thinking about it, given the circumstances, I said, no, we just missed them. He goes, what do you mean we just missed them? I said, I'd be willing to bet we could go see what everybody else saw tonight in our group of people that were all out hunting, and somebody probably saw some deer, and I'd be willing to bet where we were at tonight, this is a common place to see a lot of deer. But I would say that our wind was perfect. We accessed where there wasn't really any way for them to bust us. So everything was in our favor. We just didn't see anything. I think that don't hang your head because we missed them. And what I mean by that is they were probably moving somewhere, and they were probably up on their feet, and probably even during daylight, a lot of them, whether it's does, bucks, whatever, but we just weren't in the right spot. And that's how it goes sometimes. They're not always going to go to the same field or the same draw or through the same spot in the evenings kind of thing. And I know that sounds like it's kind of referring to patterns, but a lot of times when you find what does are doing and what some of the bucks and stuff are doing, you'll find, okay, this spot in the evening, typically they come through here. Well, not always are they going to do that same thing. Not necessarily down to the trail, but in that general area. We just didn't see them right there. And then when we got out, you guys had, I think you had seen like 5 or 10 or something, and Dad had seen a bunch. And I said, there you go. And then we ended up actually checking a camera on a different side of the farm, and there was deer the same time we were in our stand over there. So the whole thing about, like, one of the things that I don't like, I guess the point of the tip would be that you'll hear a lot of people saying, oh, the deer aren't moving. The deer aren't moving. There's situations and circumstances and weather that causes the deer not to move, obviously. But there's also times where when the weather is right, and they're going to be going to food, or they're going to be moving around, milling around, doing whatever, and you don't see a deer, it's not always that they aren't moving. You flat out can miss your deer sometimes. It just happens. So you could go back the next day even and have the same wind, same situation, everything's the same, and you see all of them. So it's just a matter of paying attention to, okay, rule out if you did something wrong. If you did something wrong, figure it out. Figure out, okay, I hunted with the wrong wind, or I accessed the wrong way. But if you hunted everything the way you know it should have been and how it's worked in the past, I'd say you can hang your hat on the fact that you just missed the deer.
You can miss
as
them.
simple as it is. Just don't sit there and think that they're not moving or that you screwed something up. Well, it happens.
Okay, so give me 2 things for the next 4 to 5 day window to kill any deer, any good buck, not necessarily one specifically, that you are going to do to try to put yourself in a position to kill one of those deer.
If I have one spot that, not even one.
And is that, hunting fields? Is that hunting timber? Is it hunting pinch point?
Well,
what is it that you're
what I'm
banking
going to
on?
do tonight? You can answer.
Well, you'll go next.
I'm ready.
What I'm doing tonight is I'm going where I sat last night. I sat where I could see a long ways. Not intentionally. I knew that deer should come through there, but they didn't. I missed them, and I could see that one live action. Like, they were over there, and they were over there, so they're moving. Tonight, and I saw a couple of the bucks finally chasing each other chasing does through the field. Tonight, I'm going to go where I know that there's I know there's always deer coming through there, mainly does. I'm going to go sit there. I've got a good wind for it, and I'm going to wait for the does to come out, and I'm going to hunt the does, basically, because I know that they're going to be checking them at some point. You're probably going to have some kind of smaller buck probably chasing them. If you don't care what it is, your best odds you're finding where the does are at.
So if you're just
and that's
hunting
common, but with a lot of things. But just if you want a good buck or a buck or whatever, I'm going towards where the does are coming out.
Yep.
That was going to be one of the ones that I was going to say. So he stole, but that's okay.
Did you have another one?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Mine is more scrapes. You got about 4 days left.
I think it's that long.
I don't even know if it's that long because
I would say this year, I would agree
be.
with that. Traditionally, I'd say
you might have missed the window already.
Yeah, well, I'd say you're on the back side of it.
Yep, and because for whatever reason we seem to be running a little slow here.
Yep.
Like normally I would say we started seeing some buck activity and bucks following does, and that what we've seen in the last day or two. Normally I feel like we see that 5 days to 6 days earlier.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And we hadn't been seeing that. But I have seen in more than one occasion, my day of the start of the rut has always been November 4th. I've seen bucks breed does on November 4th on multiple different years myself. visually seen it. And so that's what I'm like. So I'm bumping up against that, going scrapes, scrapes, scrapes. Right now, but at the same time, a lot of the trail cameras that we have sitting on scrapes have kind of gone dormant. I mean, we're not getting as much activity, but yet new scrapes are opening up, and these bucks are hitting some of the scrapes and rub posts, these rub trees that we're putting in.
This is, I will just cut in on that. The most deer that I've had just obliterating my rub posts in the past 2 or 3 years, and it took the longest too. It was also like I was tweaking in my head. I'm like, I don't know what I screwed up this time. Next thing you know, I walked in to one of my rub posts with a rub post on my shoulder and post hole diggers because I thought there was something wrong with the rub post and I was going to switch it. And I walked down there and it's shredded.
I think that we're starting to see. I think there's just like there's a period where they're hitting scrapes the hardest.
Yeah.
I think there's a period when they hit rubs the hardest, and it seems as though it's like right now. And I wonder if it's because now it's starting to get a little bit more dominant, like now it's like I think scrapes is as we preach with our sense and everything, it's a communication tool, right? And I think there's some dominance that goes into that, but I feel like when they hit a rub, and they really get after it, it's kind of like saying, all right, I'm here, and if you want some, come and get it. Like they're getting a little bit more, this is a time where I'm going to start not being such a nice guy anymore.
Yeah.
But just the other day, so I did not end up shooting the deer. I think he's a 4-year-old deer. But when we're referring to this, why I'm referring to scrapes and rubs is because I feel like your mature deer are the ones that will get patternable for a day or two or a couple days in there. And sure enough, we had a buck that was coming to a scrape, and I told Nick, I was like, I know who's gonna show up. Who I'm looking for was a buck that was only coming at night. And so I'm hoping that, he's going to make his transition today, because eventually he will make that transition and he'll show up in daylight hours. Well, he didn't. Sure enough, the buck that I didn't want to show up showed up, which is not bad. I mean, it's still fun to see a big deer, but he was a big young deer. But my point is, if a guy was trying to just fill a tag, that seems like the best. If you have a scrape somewhere located that the deer are using, I would be on it the next couple days.
Yep. I think, okay, so is that for
With
general,
the right
like just to kill any buck?
That could be for a target buck as well. But, I mean, I think you're probably seeing the same thing. It's multiple bucks hitting those rub trees.
Yeah.
So same with the scrapes. It's not like one buck's coming there and then no one else will touch it. Other bucks are showing up. And
so I think I'm going to give my 2 tips just to try to be pointed here. So if I'm just trying to kill a good deer right now and I'm listening to this tomorrow, I would be anywhere that I've had quite a few deer on scrapes, like meaning bucks that I'd shoot,
right.
Not necessarily just a particular one. Bucks that I would shoot that are hitting a scrape at any time. Now, I would be going a little more away from fields, be trying to stay close to the timber. I don't really care if those deer have been there during daylight or not. I would be staying really close to those spots, because I think is what you're going to see is over the next couple days, your bucks that are local aren't going to, I don't believe personally that they're going to go wild yet, as far as like they're all of a sudden they're a mile and a half away the next morning. I think they're going to stay close to home and try to find a girlfriend close to home first. And then once they either run out of options there or somebody kicks them out, which I don't think we really have that problem because we have way too many flipping does, which is why we shoot so many, then you're going to see those deer start popping up in new areas where they may not be right next to wherever it is that their core area is, but they're going to start to expand a little bit. And so I would be putting myself there. If I had no trail cameras, and first thing I would be trying to do is read sign, and then the next thing I would be doing is find myself a really good pinch point next to that sign, and then I would be trying to force myself to sit as long as I could, which is probably till like 9:45. But I'd be doing my best to stay as long as I could, because soon here they're going to start doing at least a little bit of cruising, and you're going to catch them going from spot to spot. If I was trying to kill a specific deer over the next couple days, ideally I have a daylight picture of him somewhere, and I'm going to put pretty much all my assets into trying to be at that for the next 3 or 4 days. After that, I think you're pretty much, it could be anywhere in that area. Just depends on the deer. It'd be very difficult to say he's going to do this or that. I mean, it's just going to be kind of a toss-up. Even now, I think you're still going to be kind of if we all could pin them, then we would kill the deer we want every single year.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, and then I think we should talk a little bit about the weather, because the weather's been a huge factor for us this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the one that sits and tells people, I don't care if it's 80 degrees, you still need to be out there. And I was. But it definitely, we had a combination of very, very warm weather in October. On top of that, we had high winds and rain, thunderstorm type rain, high humidity. It just was like everything that a deer hunter and I think the deer didn't want. And I felt like we definitely saw a lot more nighttime movement during that time. And then what happened was we went from 80 to 20 overnight. And the day that this kind of goes back to the summer thing I talked about, when I was scouting, I would see a cold front come through and go from 99 degrees down to 65 or 70. I didn't see any deer driving around in the summertime until the next day. And I felt like we had the same thing. We were all out there on the very cold first morning, like, this is it, man. They're going to be freaking out. And it was very slow movement.
Yeah.
So
I thought that podcast that we did a couple episodes ago was very coincidental, because I started paying attention to it more so even than what I was before as far as the weather goes. And I know a lot of people will argue with me on this that are around here, including some of you guys probably. I still have not had a single day this entire season where I've been like, this is the right weather and this is this is going to be it, where there's going to be a lot of freaking movement. There's going to be bucks on their feet. There's going to be this, that, the other. And not that I would normally get that all the time before the rut starts, but there's times where even mid-October and stuff, I'm like, oh, they're going to be moving tonight kind of thing. I still have yet to have like there it is, because the moment we went from hot weather to the really, really cold it's not that it was even cold. We gave them, I was thinking the second day of it would be good, because they're going to be like, oh, wow, we just had this freaking cold shock, but now we're used to it kind of thing. And even then, we never got a break in the wind. Right. It was always 20-mile-an-hour winds and gusts even more than that. The real feel was like 15 degrees. And last night was the first time it seemed like the wind started to die down, and it broke. And the deer started to – we saw the most last night than I have in a while. But I still don't feel like – even going into this morning, the moment it freaking got light, you could hear – we were in a bottom, but the moment it got light, you could hear the wind whipping up on the hill. I'm like, this is –
here we go again.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
I'm still waiting for that good 8-10 mile an hour wind that's just consistent. It's cool, and they're ready to roll. But
it's coming. I think in the next couple of days, this all kind of gets back to normal.
Yeah,
we went from
one extreme
abnormal one way to abnormal the other way.
Yeah,
but yeah, it should be interesting. I think that. It's just such, it's crazy to sit here and talk about it, because we're here and it's such a short window when you really think about it. We spend all year long talking about deer hunting. I mean, deer hunting is a big topic that we end up talking about deer hunting probably at some point every month of the year, and yet it really comes down to 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think if you're talking the peak of it, where the time period they're really excited about, it's 2 weeks. Maybe 3. How many deer that we were targeting have we killed in November? Not just good deer, like ones that we were trying to kill. Juice.
Yeah, Juice and Straight Up. Base Drop. He was November 22nd. Straight Up was the 9th or the 7th? The 9th.
What was Base Drop? 27th?
22nd.
22nd. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you've killed quite a few of them in November. I'm trying to I killed the 10 with the stickers a few years ago on the 2nd, the 1st or the 2nd, and then after that, I think
November 10th you killed the one at the house with all the
bully.
Well,
bully too.
Bully.
You killed 2 or 3 in a row. November 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we weren't really. Bully, we weren't really targeting. I mean, it was just a good deer that came by.
We didn't have cameras that worked back then, so we couldn't target anyone.
Dragon.
We were lucky to get a picture.
Dragon, and then that other one, the one with the points, is the split G2s.
Yep.
He was October 31st.
Okay, I was going to say
or October 30th.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he was October 30th. Magnum was October 29th. Bullwinkle was October 22nd. Dragon was November 7th. That other buck was November. The one with the other one with the split G2s or kickers was November 2nd. So we've killed a few of like the bucks we were after, but I know we've killed a lot of them in late October. Because you killed the wide 10 in October.
Killed Brahma last year in October.
Yep.
Killed splits in October.
Yep. What was the Big 8 was November, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He was late November, wasn't he?
No, like mid.
Like the 13th or something?
I don't remember exactly, but I want to say it was middle November.
Okay. I think that just shows the progression of what we've learned.
Actually, I think he was closer to the
or where you're hunting, the type of how you're hunting.
Yeah, too. But I think I don't think we knew the value of the last 10 days of October until we started
really paying attention.
Yeah. Like Dad killed I think splits was kind of the first one that was like, oh, maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention to this. Then he killed the wide 10. Was it the next year?
I don't remember.
Or the year before, and then it was kind of like, wow, you
better make sure we're paying attention.
Yeah.
Because both of those came to rattling horns.
Right.
So.
I have a tip. Just hunt, because that sounds amazing in the last week of October, and I have not a clue. I'm more confused now than I was 2 weeks ago.
That's because you're overthinking.
I'm not thinking at all this year. This is the first time I've walked into it like, let's see what happens. One deer gets killed. The other two, I'm like, I see them all the time last year. We'll have no issue now. That was a freaking stupid thought. Seen both of them one time, and I'm like, yeah, that's just not how it's going to go. So I'm just going to sit where I think is good. And I'm going to hope and pray.
That's probably what you should
The moment I actually saw some sort of pattern, I was like, oh, you know what? Let's do this smart. Go in there. No, that's just not.
I think there's a little bit of a pattern to the deer I saw last night that I filmed.
Mr. Liss?
Mr. Liss. I think there's a little bit. I think I've kind of figured out where he might be bedded.
Yeah.
And what he's doing. And it's kind of I would like spokes on a tire. He goes out one way, goes out another way, goes out another way. And if we can figure out how many days between each one, we can predict when he's going to come by that one spot that we need him to come by.
Even during the rut, you think?
I think you can. I think he's going to check that area.
Oh, he's going to check it for sure.
Yeah. And so.
Well, we'll give him sort of smart because.
He's old enough to be really smart.
Yeah, but he's been shot a few times. He should have probably died.
Last year, he should have been dead.
Me and Nick were joking the other day. I was like, we need to cut a piece of Alyssa's hair because Nick said, I think he only shows up for one certain person. I said, so we need to I need a black wig that I can put on or something like that.
Lord.
So he thinks that I'm Alyssa. Because until I saw him last night, that's the first time I've ever seen him.
Well, we saw him during turkey season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen him.
But you're talking during a hunting season.
During hunting season, I've not laid eyes on him until last night, and that still wasn't in a hunting scenario. I was driving down the road.
Yeah. I think the only times I've seen her was when seen him
was with her.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a tip I would give people for hunting either a specific buck or certain bucks in the rut. Is everybody says it's just super random. Which most of the time, I mean, it can be really random where they're going. They go this way, that way, the other. They're just following the women, But I would say if you've done your research, pay attention to some of them because I had one last year, RJ, he's a mature deer, and he was a big deer. I just wasn't hunting him specifically. He was on a 3-day pattern for 2 weeks. During the middle of the rut. Like I would see him on one camera hammering my rub post during the middle of the day, teasing me. And then I would see him, I think it was like the middle of the night the following day on a different camera. And then he would be on one other camera the next day. And then the third day, almost like within like a couple hours, would be on that rub post again, hammering it during daylight. And he would make big freaking loops. It would be 3 days. Once you see him on that rub post, don't bother going in there for another 3 days. But he did it for 2 weeks almost during the middle of the rut.
The more and more I believe if you want to kill one specific deer, that you got to be okay with being bored.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is if you got a spot that you can hunt without burning it out, keep sitting the same spot over and over and over and over because otherwise I feel like then you go over to this one. And now it's different if it's the wind,
well,
but
you're
just bouncing around with them.
Yeah.
Where if you just keep in the same spot and you know he's going to do it eventually, that's the problem. Is you sit there for 12 days and you get like, man, why am I doing this? And then on the 13th day, here he comes, you know.
Yeah.
I don't have the patience to do that, but if you want to kill him, that's what you should do.
But one of the things, and I just want to bring this up, and hopefully this will maybe spark some conversation with some of our listeners. They'll write in. Start paying attention and see if you're starting to see that some of your mature deer, older deer is what I'm referring to, is that they are not, when the rut starts, yes, they're chasing does, but they bring those does back to a core area. They have a little control. They're not just wandering off. Now, when those does all run out, which maybe that's why we're able to see it, is because we have so many does, they don't have to leave.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is, you think about Junior a few years ago, he had now that one's crazy. That was down to a trail. You guys have heard us talk about it. But straight up was another one. He never left that core area.
Yeah.
I would say it was a half a mile circle.
Juice, same thing.
Juice, same thing. He was in there. Now, they were chasing does and stuff, so if you can put yourself in that spot where they're in that area, and this buck you're talking about could be one of those situations where you just need to be in that area.
Yeah.
Because I just read one the other day where they talked about like the average time, the amount of activity that a buck spends on his feet during normal time was X. And then what he spends during the rut on his feet was 10X. You know, so he's covering more ground. He's walking around. The chances of him walking by you is way better when he's up moving around. But it's a lot of times those bucks aren't leaving and going very far away. What does end up happening, what I don't like, is what we'll probably see in another week, is those bigger bucks, the ones that are going to be doing the breeding, they grab a doe and then they don't move. They kind of get stuck in a spot and then they're not moving around much.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone refers to it as lockdown, and that can be tough. That can be really tough, especially when you have too many does, because they don't travel very much.
Yep. Well, back in my day of just being willing to shoot any good deer, and I may end up doing that again this year, I liked lockdown because I had does kill like 3 of them in a row on the 10th.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't like even using the term lockdown, because I think everybody thinks they just sit in one 20-yard area or whatever it is. And going off, the only reason I even have an opinion on this is because of that. The amount of deer that me and him, for whatever reason, and it seemed like we always had the same freaking thing. We'd see a doe, there's a buck behind them, and then they'd just be chasing them everywhere, all around. And then we sit there like, okay, they're definitely not splitting up. We'd get out, go to lunch, come back, and freaking shoot them later. Like, it was the dumbest thing ever, but you got to really watch and learn how they were operating with does.
But they were still going somewhere.
That's my
like they were going
point,
to go
is-
to food. Or,
Yeah, they were stuck to that doe and
Right.
in lockdown with that doe, but they were still, like, multiple of those, one of them being a very mature deer, was an old deer, and he was, 200-300 yards of back and forth of where he started from where we saw him to running around and would disappear for an hour or whatever, then ran back and everything with the same doe. But it's not like he was just sitting, like, you're not going to see him if you go sit in a stand, like, you know what I mean? And I think that's a misconception. I think some probably do that, but I don't think that's what all lockdown is. Yeah, they're probably going to find a doe, but think about it. They're going to find that doe and they're going to follow that doe. They're going to be with her and they're going to go to where she's going.
Well, when I look at this time of, like, going back to what we were talking about, like this particular time, think about the day you and I are sitting in a stand. That was Halloween. It was November 1st, the day that me and you saw Bullwinkle and Ralph both.
It was that late?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It was
what?
It was either the 31st or the 1st. I can't remember which one it was.
I think it was the first.
I think it was the 1st, because I think you guys went back on the 2nd is
Yep.
when you guys almost killed him.
Yep.
But my point is that look how much they were on their feet. We
Yeah.
saw him early, then we lost him for a couple of hours, and then here he comes up out of there. Then we went to McDonald's, and I'm pretty sure Bullwinkle walked by while we were at McDonald's.
Thank
So-
you.
You're welcome.
Well, the only thing is if you had killed Bullwinkle that year, that was before he was
Oh, he
was big, but he wasn't bigger.
That was before both of them were
I think that
big.
was the peak year, wasn't it?
No,
No,
that was the year that I got so many photos of him on that fence.
Oh,
So
I
that
thought
was, he was like 2 years after that is when
He was still
really big.
easily
Yeah, he was
boomer.
probably 4 or 5 then. Oh, he was a big
Yeah.
deer.
Yeah, but and then Ralph was big as well,
Yes, he was.
but that was also not his biggest year.
no.
No, but anyhow, so my point is, you think about that and compare that to right now. that you could see, especially, gosh dang, that's what I love about mornings. Is it was like 10:30 when we saw. I think it was 10:30 because you had said I begged you to stay till at least 10:30, and next thing I know, you're like big deer, and so that was 3 hours after daylight. So they're still on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it's just
that's the only thing that sucks about the rut is it's like I think that seeing them is a lot easier. Actually getting them to come right where you need to be able to shoot them gets
tough.
difficult. Yeah.
Except for Ralph.
Yeah.
We grunted him right in, but he didn't have anybody with him.
No, he was.
Yep.
He wasn't.
All right. Well, I think we should wrap it up because
It's time to go get in a tree.
Yep. But I have a wild fact real quick.
It's not a wild fact, Warren.
It's a wacky fact.
Japan is facing a ninja shortage. There is a high demand for ninja shows, but it is a dying tradition, and companies have trouble finding properly trained ninjas.
What do they? What? So what does a ninja actually do?
They throw ninja stars.
That's what a ninja does.
That was racist because they don't speak.
Oh, think
You
about
think-
it. They're making a show on it. If that's not racist,
You think that's racist? This is racist.
they're making money off
More
of them.
than 1/5 of all the calories consumed by humans worldwide is provided by rice alone. I don't think Americans like rice all that much. And there's a lot more Asian people than there is Americans. So the reason that 1/5 of all the calories are consumed by humans worldwide, it should say consumed by Asians worldwide.
That's not true.
I don't think it's Asian.
Rice is in
How many-
everything.
How you're eating 1/5 of your calories a year in rice?
Dude, I eat peanut butter Captain Crunch at night, okay? I'm
That's
a little
not
different.
rice.
You have rice almost every day.
Nick, with what?
When Alyssa makes your meals, you used to eat rice every time, and then peas, and you'd pick them out.
Nick, do you eat rice every day? Do you eat it once a week? Do you eat it twice a week? Okay, so it's almost 1/5. What about you're not eating rice once a week?
Maybe once a week.
Yeah, he is. Those
Whatever.
meals are all rice.
Yeah, they got rice in all the meals that we order.
Okay, well you're ordering meals, so that's
Yeah,
different.
but mom make now. I don't.
It's
I
still
think
rice.
I think it's Asian people eating it all.
No,
That's
they're
why-
producing. Okay, whatever. Anyways, we're going to sign out of here.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we appreciate you, and we apologize if it's a little bit short or we sound like we're a little bit antsy to get out of here because we're just like you guys. We want to go climb in a tree. Raised Hunting signing off.
Peace.